So I know some of you, I don't know all of you, but to those of you I know, hello, nice to see you. And to those of you I don't necessarily know, nice to meet you, nice to see you. And yeah, I'm Reverend Allard. I'm at the moment the Tenzo or chief cook here. I'm in my third year in charge of the kitchen, and I have deep gratitude and respect for all the previous chief cooks. You really don't know um, how much it takes to run a kitchen until you really have to do it yourself. So um, it's been a steep learning curve. Um, and maybe again, for those of you who don't know me, I've been a monk for about 12 years. My teacher is Reverend Master Oswin, if you know who that is. Today happens to be his birthday, as the case may be. And um, am from Oregon originally, and then met Reverend Master Oswin in Eugene and trained with him for a few years, was ordained there, and then we, kind of conditions changed and we moved down to the Abbey. So pretty much been down here since for my whole monastic life. So yeah. Um, Maybe we'll start with the three homages, and I'll share what I have to say. Homage to the Buddha, homage to the Dharma, homage to the Sangha. So I'm still kind of chewing on this idea, but it's been something that I've been actively thinking about. So I have a kind of visual type of mind. I kind of will see something or have an image in my head, and there's kind of like a Dharma idea centered around it. So I'm going to try and convey this idea, which was spawned because of its visual nature, but I think it's a really good metaphor or like, you know, structure to kind of build an idea about training onto it. Um, so if you all are familiar with the Surangama litany, um,
We
there,
aren't.
oh, you're not familiar with the Surangama litany.
No, I
Okay.
mentioned it to them briefly, but there are some here who've never heard it.
Oh, fair enough. Okay. Well, then a quick crash course on the Shurangama litany, which so there's a Mahayana scripture called the Shurangama scripture or sutra, and it, in a nutshell, is about Ananda who is enticed onto the bed of a local courtesan who has fallen in love with him. And the Buddha kind of sees that, Ananda has been enticed onto this young woman's bed and is about to get himself kind of in monastic trouble, and sends Manjusri over to rescue him by reciting the Shurangama litany or the Shurangama mantra. We translate mantra as litany. And so Ananda kind of like wakes up like, oh my God, what am I doing? He and the young woman wind up following Manjusri back to the monastery. And the Buddha gives this discourse about like, why did that just happen, Ananda? Why, um, you know, and the it's a really wonderful scripture. I just was reading it I try and read, some Dharma during term. And so we just had our fall term from September through December. So that was what I was studying, was the Shurangama Sutra, which I had read before, but it's like anytime you reread something, it's like you see things that you didn't understand or you didn't see before. It's just really incredible how things open up. It's like, wow, did I ever even read this before? And so um I'll just encourage you to check that out sometime, because really what the Buddha does is he talks about the mind and how, you have to really, Ananda was very intellectual, so you can think about all of this. You can have training all the equations down on paper, but unless you actually watch your mind and let things go, then you're not going to untangle your greed, hate, and delusion. And some intense lust or feeling, or anger, as the case could be, or whatever, can arise, and you may know how to let go on paper, but do you actually know how to let go in real life? And so the Buddha just goes over again and again and again, like trying to make this point to Ananda, who keeps not getting it because he keeps wanting training to be easy, which it's not. It's not. You have to do the work. And so Reverend Master Hubert translated the Shurangama litany, the mantra, and he said it was his greatest achievement. And this is a monk who translated the whole of the Shobogenzo, and he said the Shurangama litany was his greatest achievement. It can be found in the monastic office, if you know what that is. I'm sure if you look it up, I did a quick search for Shurangama. I don't even think I was looking at the Surangama mantra, and I found the Reverend Master Hubert translation of it on some random website, and I thought that was pretty neat. It didn't even mention the Abbey, it mentioned some other website, which, I checked out and didn't even seem like a Dharma website. So if you're interested in looking up the litany, but the litany is, it reads kind of like a mantra. It's like an invocation for protection and for help and guidance, and you're like invoking the names of all these Buddhas, of all these ancestors, of all these bodhisattvas, of all these Dharma protectors. You're just calling on everybody for help. But it's so beautiful how like it lists things as entanglements, and that we may I be free of this entanglement, may I be free from this entanglement by being mindful of this, may I be cleansed. I'd encourage you to read it if you haven't, because it's really beautiful. Rev Master Jisho used to read it every day. And he loved the Surangama Sutra and the Surangama litany, as you may or may not know. So there's this point where there's this long list of things that the reciter is saying, by being mindful of, may I be cleansed. And there's this line that says, by being mindful of the true Garuda who swallows the serpent of hate, may I be cleansed. And there's another part just back a page from that where it talks about a being named Lochana, which I'm not exactly familiar with who Lochana is, but and upon thee, Lochana, with thy garlands in full bloom, divine mother who is wisdom, thee whose Vajra is lustrous as gold, who like the Vajra-beaked Garuda swallows the serpent of hatred. So there's 2 points where this image of this Garuda who swallows the serpent of hate. And I'll just quickly say, if you don't know, a Garuda is like a bird-like being who got absorbed into Buddhist cosmology from Hinduism. My understanding with these kinds of things is that, if you read some of the old Thai forest tradition monks, they'll openly talk about encountering, spiritual beings or beings from different realms or planes of existence, however you want to think about it. And Nagas and Devas and Garudas and all these kinds of things that may seem fantastic to us, they'll just kind of say, oh yeah, yeah. So whether you want to think of these things as real things or mythical things, I'll leave that to you. But basically, a Garuda is just this kind of humanoid bird-like creature who has been a spiritual protector of, religion and spiritual practitioners. Reverend Master Jisho, many years ago now, I'm thinking I was probably a novice at the time, and I don't think I wrote it down, so you'll have to forgive me. It's just this kind of like image in my head that he talked about, but he said that the Garuda swallows the serpent of hate. And he talked about the Garuda's like throat being blue. And he said like the feathers on the Garuda's throat being blue. And I tried to look this up and I couldn't find any reference to any of this. I'm still gonna do some digging, but I wasn't able to find anything before this talk. So and he said that the Garuda's throat was blue because of the poison of the serpent. It's like the eating of the serpent of hate and the digesting of the poison then like colored the feathers of the Garuda's throat. And me being a visual person, like, so my brain just kind of logged that. And for some reason that's been coming up lately. I did a talk recently on fear. And so I think my mind has been kind of chewing on this theme. So sometime within the past few weeks or month, this memory and this image of this blue-throated Garuda who swallows the serpent of hate has been on my mind. And there were things about that image that I felt like were really helpful when I reflected on what that was pointing to. And you could kind of tie it into like what the Buddha was saying, what I was just saying about the Surangama Sutra, about how we can read about training in a book and we can be able to write it out on paper. But when we're actually in real life, interacting with real people in difficult situations, being still, as we all know, is not so easy to do. When you're having to deal with feelings, confusing conditions, difficult conditions, etc. And hatred is one of those things that is, I was thinking, okay, anger, jealousy, frustration, hatred. What is hatred? And I'm not the kind of person to look it up in a dictionary, so you would have thought I would have done that, but I didn't. But when I think about hatred, I have this idea of focused ill will, focused animosity. It's not just a frustration, but there's actually this focused ill will, the wish that you come to harm. It like clicks over into this activity of like wishing harm for somebody. And that was definitely on my mind because of this talk I did a few weeks ago. And so what is this swallowing the serpent of hate? And I'm also just remembering now that what sparked this idea for this topic was that, as you know, training is difficult, people living together. I'm privy to a lot of disagreements, because the kitchen is a real pressure cooker. It's a real condensed environment for practice. You're locked into one room with everybody all day, and so it can, you have nowhere to run. In extern sacristy, you can go stack some wood by yourself. But in the kitchen, at best, you can go chop vegetables on a different counter. There's not really too many places that you can hide. And so I was encouraging somebody to make peace. That they're trying to justify this and that, and it's like, sure, okay, maybe you're right, maybe they're wrong. Great, you've got to make peace. Like, whether you're right, whether you're wrong, you've got to make peace. And that's when I think that this memory came up about the Garuda who swallows the serpent of hate, piped in, and those wheels started turning. And what I've been reflecting on and thinking about is that there are the external conditions of hate that we can actually encounter. And some people are going to encounter them, more, possibly more than others, depending on race, sexual orientation, what have you, where you live, what culture you find yourself in. Some people really have to deal with hatred on a very real level. I would think at least most Americans these days are probably feeling a lot of hatred because of politics. You find yourself on, one side or the other, and for some reason we're just hating on each other. So there's the actual external hatred that we can encounter in daily life, and we can't control that. That's someone else's reaction aimed at us. But this image of the Garuda swallowing the serpent of hate, and if you've ever heard the term a karmic washing machine, which Rev Master Jisho always used to say, and I think that comes from Rev Master Jiyu, but I know it from him. This idea that we're these karmic washing machines. Okay, we are taking in this dirty laundry. We are kind of sitting still with this agitation, and we are letting it go. And that's how we cleanse karma. It's said that feeling is the reaper of karma. We have to feel the agitation and the hate and the lust and the greed, hate, and delusion. These feelings arise, they bubble up, but we have the choice not to act on them, give in to them, perpetuate them. And when we do that, it is like we are digesting that and making it a part of us, which is where the image for me of the blue feathers comes in. And if you think of the serpent of hatred as like being a poison, it's like, forget about the snake. It's like what's the word when you, like an anti-venom, when you cut the poison, when you neutralize the poison. Like, by that act of sitting still, if you can kind of follow the metaphor, by that act of sitting still, we are neutralizing the poison of the world, the venom, which is just arising not because the world is evil, but because it's confused. and within that sitting still, again, if you can imagine like a bird with beautiful feathers, colorful feathers, it's like the color of those feathers are such that they gain their color by the digesting and the neutralizing of the poison. So I don't know if this image is hitting for you all, but for me, it's like you have something that's hurtful and raw and dangerous, and then it gets digested and neutralized and converted and becomes something beautiful. Like if you can imagine like a beautiful tropical bird, like these birds that have these incredible feathers and colors, that is our opportunity in the world as practitioners to take the world's hatred and to convert it and digest it. And it's almost like, in a way, this image of like stepping in front of a bullet. Like, it's like, why would you do that? There's so much work involved in that. It's like, again, get it off the textbook, get it off the paper, get it into real life. And you know how difficult that is. You know how painful that can be when someone just totally lights you up and you just kind of smile and bow, and you don't get involved in an argument or a disagreement, when you can be the bigger person to just bow and say, to yourself, like, this really isn't the important thing. I don't have to go there. I'm just gonna bow and walk away, like, and continue with my day. Maybe we can say something kind to someone. We can diffuse the situation, but not always. Sometimes you just have to bow and walk away. But to take that kind of pain, to not react to it in a negative way, and to convert it into that positive energy for training, which solidifies that foundation of sitting still. And each time we do that, that sitting still gets easier to do and easier to do and easier to do. So that's the external part. Then there's the internal part. There's our hatred. There's our hatred that we are spitting out onto the world. And so this swallowing the serpent of hatred, it's like, yeah, that could be an external thing. And also it is often an internal thing. It's my own hatred and, violence, even though it may not actually be violence in that kind of most active sense of that word. But this serious aggression towards whatever aspect of daily life is, in our face. And can we sit still with that and swallow that pain, not just as a way of being brave and being able to endure it, but actually to convert it, to actually let it go and digest it and let that color the feathers, again, to follow that image. And so what I would encourage you all in is to, which is nothing that I'm sure you don't already know and do, but I like images. I call it my illiterate peasant karma. It's like iconography is kind of teaching it's teaching without words, for people, way back when, we're all very mostly literate these days, but for people way back when, who were mostly illiterate, we had murals and things that could give us teaching that you could get without having to be able to read it. It's like you could see it in the painting or in the statue. And so this image of the Garuda, I just wanted to share that as hopefully being inspirational, so that when you're actually in the situation of feeling the pain of encountering anger or having to sit still with your own anger or hatred, like Ananda, we have to actually do the work. We can't just wish it away, but we actually have to learn how to sit still with these things and how to actually act in kindness and respond in kindness to a situation that we don't want to be kind to. We don't want to be nice to this person. We don't want to be helpful to this person. We want to be snotty and bratty and hateful because, whatever, XYZ. But actually to let those thoughts and feelings go and to root ourselves more deeply in practice and convert that again to the kind of beautiful, turn it into something beautiful, like a beautiful aspect, a beautiful expression that you can make, which is a bow, one expression. And that's how we change the world. That's how we actually make a difference in the world. And anyone who tells us that we're too small, we can't make a difference, they don't know what they're talking about, because that's how we make a difference in every moment, is we take that greed, hate, and delusion and we convert it into love and compassion and wisdom. But that takes the work. So that's what I wanted to say. I hope that's encouraging in some way. And thank you for listening.